Hello, how's everybody doing today? I'm gonna do something a little special. I'm gonna tell you my favorite rock and metal albums for the year 2022, my top 35. We will go 35 to 1 with a couple of honorable mentions. So let's see what we got. The honorable mentions go to Soilwork, who made the album Over Heighten. I don't know how to pronounce that. Now, Soilwork is kind of a melodic metal band from Sweden, and although this album was pretty good, it didn't quite make it to the top 35. The same thing with Wormrot with Hiss. It was decent, but it didn't quite make it. But Wormrot's a little different. They're a grindcore band, and sort of crossover, a little punkish, that kind of thing. Okay, now let's get on to the actual list. Okay, here we go. Number 35, we have Municipal Waste with Electrified Brain. Now this is kind of a crossover thrash band. They're more on the thrashy side. At times they sound a touch like Slayer, but a fun Slayer, and this album is pretty good. Not quite as good as The Art of Parting, but not bad. Number 34, we have Elder with Innate Passage. Sorry, I get confused with the band names and the albums. Okay, now this is a prog rock band. The songs are very long. I would not consider them metal, but rather relaxing to listen to. Number 33, we have Porcupine Tree with Closure. Now, Porcupine Tree is Steven Wilson's band. Who Steven Wilson also worked with Opeth, and Porcupine Tree just reformed after being absent for quite a while. But they've been an active band since the 1990s. And on this album, they went for more of a bluesy sound, and I've always liked blues, so this was rather enjoyable. Number 32 is Wilderrun with Epigon, a good follow-up to Vial of Imagination, but it's not quite up to that to those standards. I think that was a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for them, that 2019 album. So this was as good a follow-up as we can expect. Number 31, Blut aus Nord with Disharmonium, Undreamable Abysses. Now, this is a very popular album with extreme metalheads, but for me, it doesn't scare me. It's an interesting atmosphere, but it kind of drags. Like it doesn't change much throughout the album, and I like albums that change, but for the one trick that they do, it's pretty good. Number 30, we have the Halo Effect with Days of the Lost. They're sort of similar to Soilwork, but a little more melodic death metal. And now this is kind of a project that included members of Dark Tranquillity with In Flames. So, and I really enjoyed this album. It brings me back to the old In Flames albums, like the Jester Race and Horacle and those albums. Number 29. We're in the 20s now. We have Creator with Hate Über Alles. Still a very good album. Not as good as the previous two, Gods of Violence and Phantom Antichrist, and certainly not as good as An Enemy of God, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. Well, top 30. This is a thrash band from Germany who has been very consistent over the years. Some people say they're the German equivalent of Slayer. I don't know about that. They seem to experiment a little bit more than Slayer did. Number 28, we have Undeath. It's Time to Rise from the Grave. This is old school death metal. Sounds very similar to Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation. So if you with pretty good flow. So if you liked Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation, this is kind of sounds like a cross in between the two, with maybe a touch of Morbid Angel thrown in. Number 27, Revocation with Nether Heaven. Now, as soon as Trevor, I can't pronounce his last name, died from the Black Dahlia murder, they dedicated this album to him, which he was a guest of. Now, this is kind of on the border of thrash and death metal, but this one really gets your blood pumping. Yeah. Number 26, Queensryche. One of my old favorite bands with Digital Noise Alliance. They, as I'm sure you know, Jeff Tate left in 2013, but Todd, damn, I can't pronounce his last name. But Todd, I'll just say Todd, stepped in and did a good job in Todd LaTorre, there you go. Did a good job in filling in for Jeff Tate, and I've liked their previous 4 albums, especially Condition Human, and this one wasn't half bad either. Although I really don't think they should have put a Billy Idol cover at the end of the song, or the end of the album. I'm sorry. There's no need for that. I'm not a Billy Idol fan. Queensryche does by no means sound like them, and I think that should have been scrapped. If you want to do a cover, do an Iron Maiden cover or something, because that's closer to what you guys sound like. Okay. Number 25, Exhumed to the Dead. This is probably the most brutal album of 2022. Man, you ought to see that album cover. You have zombies eating people, like their hands, their body parts, and even in the wine glass you see the eyes. It's like a more intense version of Carcass, but I don't think they're quite as good as Carcass, but they make up for it in brutality. Believe me. 24, Saxon Carpe Diem. They are probably the longest lasting band on this list who's made more albums than any other band. And they stay consistent to their sound. And Carpe Diem is no different. New wave of British heavy metal, traditional heavy metal, done at a very high level. So if you get a chance, check this one out. Especially all you people that don't like thrash and death metal that much, or doom metal, but like the traditional heavy metal, this one's for you. Number 23, we have Ko. with Moss Grew on the Swords and Plowshares. Ah yes, that's a Toby Driver project. Now, Toby Driver was in the band, was actually the leader of the band Model Under the Well. And Ko. is kind of like the spawn of that. Of course, nothing will beat Bath Leaving Your Body Map, but this is very, very good. Still very unorthodox. Toby Driver does things his own way, in a very unique way, and is a very talented individual. Okay, going backwards. 22, Megadeth, the sick, the dying, and the dead. Yeah, some people praise this album. Some people complain about it. I like it. Of course, it's no Peace Sells or Rest in Peace, but it's no Risk or Super Collider either. And while there are some cringy songs like Junkie, they also have some very good ones too, like the title track and Soldier On, and I think the second track is very good too, although I forget the name of it. Voivod, Synchro, and Anarchy. This is a Canadian band who I wouldn't call a thrash band, but they're kind of a prog band. The singer sounds a touch like Ozzy Osbourne at times, but Voivod's kind of new to me. I haven't listened to a lot of Voivod throughout my life. Yeah, so now 20, Soulfly, Totem, Max Cavalera is back. And if I didn't tell you, you'd probably think this was a Sepultura album. Definitely a Sepultura album. The riffs are tremendous. Max sounds as good as ever. I really recommend giving this one a listen. You're gonna bang your head till your neck hurts. Okay. Number 19, we have Ghost with Impera. I really love this. This is a rock album. This is not a metal album. I don't care what anybody says. It's very catchy, sounds very 80s, just like Prequel did. Prequel's probably my favorite, but Impera is very good too, especially like the first few tracks. Like Spillways. I like the vocal melodies throughout this. Tobias does a great job here, and let's hope they continue to make good albums like this in the future. Although I would secretly like an album like Opus and Eponymous again. Yeah, kind of go back to their old roots. I don't think they're gonna do that. If they don't, it's fine. Number 18, we have Psy with Shiki. This is a black metal album from Japan. I can't understand a word that they're saying, but the flow of the album, the vocals, all great. So listen to this if you can. From what I understand, they have some other albums that sing in English too. So yeah, this is something to check out. Number 17, Candlemass, Sweet Evil Sun. Candlemass was kind of the next step in doom metal from bands like Trouble. Of course, Black Sabbath had some doom in them, but I like this album. I see a lot of people complaining about it, but I don't know why. Riffs, all over the damn place with this. I really like it. Check this out. Damn. Beautiful album. The only track I may not care for too much is Scandinavian Gods, but most albums have a dud or two on them. But the rest of it, yeah. This is another band that's very consistent. Has been very consistent throughout the years. Since 1986. Actually. Number 16, we have Immolation with Acts of God. Now, Acts of God is another one of those old school death metal bands. I mean, what am I saying? God damn it. And Immolation's the name of the band. Acts of God is the album. So, yeah, that's another band that stayed true to their sound. It's a little different from their earlier albums like Dawn of Possession, but it still holds its own, that's for sure. And I would recommend, if you like traditional death metal, this is one to check out for sure. It's one of the best in 2022. Number 15, Zeal and Ardor, with their self-titled. Now, this is not the Strange Fruit album from 2018, which may have been my album of the year. What Zeal and Ardor does, they're in the black. So they mix blues with black metal. I know you wouldn't think that works, but it does. It really does. I really enjoy this band. This is a brand new sound that I've never heard before, and I hope they continue to make albums like Strange Fruits and their title track album of this year, and they'll be in good shape. They'll be in damn good shape. Number 14, Disillusion with I Am. This is kind of a prog album, but very complex. Not too many growling deep vocals, but definitely some changes, some tempo changes, which I love in albums, and you're gonna see that as we get to the final portion of this list. Yeah, and I love the album cover. It almost looks like the eye of a hurricane now. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's a hell of an album cover, boys. Besides, they're from my mother's hometown, Germany. Well, so is Creator, but yeah, I guess we can honor this to my late mother. Speaking of which, 13 is Septic Flesh, a Greek band. My dad was Greek, with modern primitive. This is a good kind of, I'm sure this is influenced by bands like Opeth, because you get clean singing and growling singing. It has a great flow, great rhythm, and I really like this one. Now you're going to be surprised about number 12, Stryper, The Final Battle. Stryper is a Christian rock metal band from the 80s, but they saved their best album for 2022. There are none of these children's songs that you sung, Soldiers Under Command and To Hell with the Devil. And Michael Sweet, the lead singer, sounds good as ever. A great straight up metal album. Tremendous. Number 11, we have Zentrix with 7 words. A British thrash metal band. This is probably the best thrash metal album of the year, or I should say my favorite, because best is a subjective term, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I really like this album. It's got the power. It never lets up off the gas. There is a lot of Bay Area thrash influence, like Testament, bands like that. So if you listen to any thrash band of this year, Zentrix, 7 words, please try it for me. Number 10 is going to be the hardest one to pronounce. I'll try to pronounce the name of the band. I will not pronounce the album. The album is virtually impossible to pronounce. It's called Zompantli. They're actually from California, and the album also starts with a T, but forget it. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, and the song titles are virtually impossible to pronounce too. Apparently this is they're talking about tribes that lived in the Americas thousands of years ago that would how they would use their human skulls and sacrifices. This is kind of death doom, I would say. A touch of funeral doom in between, and a touch of death metal. it's not a long album, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy that the subject matter is different, and well, and and sound, it really flows well. I know I say that about a lot of albums, right? Number 9, Lord Belial, Rapture. This is a black metal band, a pure black metal band. It rips and rips from beginning to the end. You get those high-pitched black metal vocals. And this is their first album in 14 years, so they came back with a bang. Holy shit! Lord Belial, one of the best black metal albums of 2022. This one never lets up. It never slows down. Maybe a few passages here and there, but it's brutal. Very brutal. We go from that to Oceans of Slumber with Starlight and Ash. This has a female singer, a black female singer. Let me tell you, her voice is beautiful. I would not call this a metal band. Her voice is one of the most relaxing voices you'll ever hear. This is something if you want to relax, because her voice is so soothing, unbelievable. And congratulations from Oceans of Slumber for making it this high on the list. Wow. Well done. Well done. Number 7, Autopsy, Morbidity Triumph. More gore and goo, and they also have a gruesome album cover. Not quite as exhumed, but the music is a lot better. There are even some Black Sabbath type of riffs. This doesn't sound too far from the album they made back in 1992, which is called Mental Funeral. I don't know if it might be even better in my personal taste, although I think that's heresy to most Autopsy fans. But check this one out. If you love death metal, and particularly slow death metal, they border on Death Doom, but I consider them still a death metal band, although they have a lot of slow parts. See, I like a lot of slow parts in death metal and doom metal. It gives you an eerie feeling. Now we get to number 6, Kardashev with Liminal Rights, or Liminal Right, I'm sorry, it's singular. This is a very personal one to me. I've lost 6 family members in a period of 10 years. And that's what this album talks about, especially in the intro, the approach to atonement. I think he's talking to loved ones. He's saying, I wish I could see you again. And this is not an easy listen. This is a very hard listen. And to many people, this would not be enjoyable. But this is just personal to me. Okay? Personal to me. Number 5, we have The Agony and Ecstasy of Watain. This is the black metal album of the year. The true black metal album of the year. It has tempo changes. It has very intense parts. It even has a female vocalist on one of the tracks, which adds to it. But mostly, it's Swedish black metal at its best. Swedish black metal at its best. Oh my God. I never thought they could top Lawless Darkness. They did it with this one. Let me tell you. They really did. Now, number 4, the Metal Meltdown is going to crucify me for saying this. Ozzy Osbourne, Patient Number 9. This is probably Ozzy's best album since No More Tears, at least. Although I think auto-tune has a lot to do with that. And there were a lot of guests on this album, like Eric Clapton, among others. But at times, this almost sounds like the old Black Sabbath, especially on the last track, which is very bluesy. Incredible album. I can't say enough. If this is Ozzy's last album, he went out on top. He really did. Now the top three. The Bronze Medalist. An abstract illusion with woe. This is not a very well-known band, but they are from Sweden. I see a lot of Opeth influences in here. I mean, a lot of Opeth influences in here. The album is not heavy all the time. It goes into softer passages, like track number 4, and it starts with the song "The Behemoth Lies Asleep," which is a good intro to Slaves, which they really turn on their brutality there. You also have "In the Heavens Above You Will Become a Monster," and "The Torment Ends But Has No Beginnings." Those are great tracks. Actually, you know what I found out? This is actually a 60-minute long song with different chapters. But I'm going to treat them song by song. But this is not a concept album, but close. Okay, so that's the Bronze Medal album for 2022. Number 2, we have Imperial Triumphant with Spirit of Ecstasy. Everything seems to be coming in twos this year. Like we had Autopsy with Morbidity Triumphant. Now we have Imperial Triumphant with Spirit of Ecstasy. We've had the Ecstasy of Watain. This one fuses jazz with death metal. And there's this song called Tower of Glory, City of Shame. If you were ever to fall off a big skyscraper and you would hear music going through your head, this is what it would sound like. Very ominous. You can hear screams, people screaming in the background, and the growls are very good. Plus they use Kenny G makes an appearance, who's very famous. He does a sax solo on, I forgot the name of the song, but I think it's the 4th track of the album. So, yeah, this is really special. At times, the jazz sounds kind of old-fashioned, well, in one point of the album, really. But please check this out. And they were not only that, but this wears masks like Slipknot, but it does not sound like Slipknot. Slipknot to me is a very average band. The growls are very deep and ominous. And I think this actually flip-flopped between my number 1. But since there is a tad too much screaming in this, it missed out on the gold medal, so it's going to have to settle for silver medal this year. Now, the gold medal album, which is called White Ward, False Light. This is a Ukrainian band, and the album is absolutely incredible. The themes are that men who think, or women, or people who think they are on top of the world really aren't, and it's ego. And the themes are urban decay. Now, think about the first time or when you got used to Agalog's The Mantle, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. Now, this does not sound like The Mantle by any means, but it kind of gives me that same, euphoric vibe when I listen to this. And oh man, that saxophone, they use even more jazz than Imperial Triumphant, and they do it better. It's incredible, beyond phenomenal. If we do an end of the decades list, this will be at least number 5. Last year we had perhaps an even better album with Ad Nauseum, but White Ward, they really did it this time. This is their 3rd full-length album, and it is phenomenal. On the 2nd track, I heard the deepest natural voice that I've ever heard in my life. The vocals go from black metal to death metal, and the title track is over 14 minutes long. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And then the last track, the instrumental, this would be kind of like White Ward's A Desolation Song. It's an instrumental, but it talks about the main sin, and I want you to remember this. Disobedience was the original sin. Disobedience is what, according to the Bible, caused Eve to eat the fruit of the tree. And it says that paradise would be nice, but we would still be human beings. So remember that. Disobedience is the original sin. Well, so they definitely deserve the gold medal album of the year. I was kind of flipping back and forth, but wow, man, I couldn't do it. I couldn't put this any less than number 1. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll do this again probably next year. Thank you very much for watching, and you have a wonderful day, and check out at least some of these albums if you can. Will you do that for me? Come on, you can do it. It's not gonna take up that much of your time, and even if you're busy, just listen to it while you're working. Any of these albums, but especially the last 10. Okay, everyone have a great day and a happy new year, and I will see you next year. Goodbye.